Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the Library of Congress. My name is Cameron Penwell, and I am the head of the East Asian section in the library's Asian division. Today, we are honored to host this very special event and to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the Omotesenke Domonkai, Eastern Region, USA. Congratulations on this significant milestone. The Library of Congress holds vast collections related to Japan and to tea. The Japanese collections here total more than 1.2 million physical items in various formats, whether books, photographs, woodblock prints, maps, films, and much more. The library's collection of Japanese books, some of which you may have seen at the display, is accessible through the Asian Reading Room, while items in other formats can be viewed at their relevant location, such as the Prints and Photographs Reading Room. All of these collections serve as invaluable resources for researchers and readers of all types and are available for use by anyone who is seeking to deepen their understanding of Japan and its history, culture, and people. The library preserves and shares these materials through exhibitions, displays, and public programs such as this one, all with the aim of fostering cross-cultural learning and appreciation. Today, we have the very special privilege of welcoming Yūyūsai Sen Sōsa, the 15th generation Iemoto of Omotesenke, to speak with us about Japanese tea culture. This occasion marks the first time the library has hosted such an event, and it is a testament to the deep and enduring cultural ties between Japan and the United States. We are proud to have the library co-host this event in collaboration with Omotesenke, and we look forward to the meaningful insights and exchanges that will emerge from today's gathering. Thank you again all for being here, and we hope you enjoy today's lecture.
Welcome to Library of Congress. My name is Ryuji Ueno, and I'm in charge of the Omotesenke Eastern USA. And I'm very honored to have the lecture here, having our grantee master, celebrating the 15th year anniversary after establishment of Omotesenke Domonkai Eastern Shore. Because, you know, this 15 years, it was planned, 5 years ago. But because of the COVID, it was pushed back. And then finally, this anniversary event become true. So we are really impressed. And today, our Iemoto, you understand Iemoto? Iemoto is owner of the Omotesenke and the Grand Tea Master. And it's quite unusual, the Grand Tea Master will give you the lecture in front of the public. But this is a special occasion, and I would introduce a little bit about Iemoto. He is the 15th generation of the Omotesenke Sen Sōsa. 15th means maybe more than 400 years. The family pedigree is continuing. And because he's doing the plenary lecture here, he's a doctor in literature and aesthetics, received from Doshisha University in Japan. So he made a lot of research work while he was in the university. And I'm very glad to show this occasion, having Iemoto to meet you and talk to you directly in person. And Omotesenke has many, very well-known politicians, scientists, and so on. And today we have Shukuro Sensei here. He got a Nobel Prize a couple of years ago. Manabe Sensei. And also, I would like to introduce the ambassador, Shigeo Yamada. And our division is 54th branches of Omotesenke, and newest branch among the 54 branches. The Omotesenke has such a big unit and many members in there, but I would like to, I'm very happy to introduce 15th generation Iemoto, Dr. Sen Sōsa today, and I would like you to enjoy his very philosophical, academic talk today. Please welcome Iemoto Sen Sōsa. And now we will do some showing the new scroll hanging in the place, and that is going to be the gift for the Library of Congress. And the Kumakura Sosho, please. And the scroll hanging is it's just easy to hang the scroll, but from our point, the scroll is one of the most important kind of utensil between utensils and human, and because it has some words in that, and it's like human rather than the utensils. And as you can see, Kumakura Sosho is doing the hanging ceremony, and that is one of the 5 most important procedures. And so all his movement is all, regulated. Yeah, this scroll is written by Iemoto for this as a gift to the Library of Congress. And Iemoto will mention about what is written on the scroll during his lecture.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sen Sōsa, and I am the 15th generation Iemoto of Omotesenke tea lineage. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all those involved in giving me the opportunity to make a speech at the Library of Congress, Washington, D.C. today. The Omotesenke Domonkai Eastern Region USA is celebrating its 15th anniversary, and I have come to Washington, D.C. to take part in the commemorative events. And this lecture is one of those commemorative events. And next week, I will be traveling to New York, and I'll be presenting a formal tea offering dedicated to world peace at St. John's Divine Cathedral. What we know now as the traditional tea culture in Japan was developed by Sen Rikyu. Our ancestor at the end of the 16th century. Omotesenke has inherited the spirit and form of Chanoyu that Rikyu developed for about 450 years and continues to the present day. I succeeded as the 15th generation head of the family, Iemoto, in 2018, counting from Sen Rikyu, when my father handed over the position to me. The name Sōsa, which I took at that time, is the name that the successive generations of head of our family have held since Rikyu's great-grandson, the fourth generation Iemoto. And I also have the name Yūyūsai, which was given to me by the abbot of the Daitokuji Temple when I was ordained at the temple in 1998 and recognized as the next Iemoto. Since all successive generations of Omotesenke have taken the name Sen Sōsa, so this kind of name identifies which generation of Iemoto he is. When I was a child, my parents never forced me to take lessons, or they didn't say anything like, "Oh, you had to be Iemoto in the future." But since I spent my childhood in such an environment, he was very close to me, and I watched my father's work very closely. So I felt that I would be in that position. And when I actually succeeded Iemoto 7 years ago, I felt as if the day had finally arrived. Since the time of Sen Rikyu, Chanoyu has become one of the representative cultural arts of Japan and spread not only throughout Japan, but also to the world. Domonkai, the Association of Omotesenke members, has 53 branches in Japan and 4 overseas. The 4 overseas branches are in Hawaii, Northern California, Southern California, and the Eastern region, USA. Both the Northern and Southern California branches celebrated their 50th anniversary last year, and Hawaii branch is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year, and commemorative events is planned for next June. For this occasion, I'd like to talk about Sen Rikyu, as well as about Omotesenke and Japanese tea culture in general. And today's talk will be divided into 4 parts. First, I would like to talk about Chanoyu in general. And second chapter will be about tea master in the 16th century, Sen Rikyu. Then third chapter, I will introduce about Omotesenke. Then final chapter, I will talk about the spirits and essence of Chanoyu, which we have carefully inherited. So now I'm in the first chapter. The title of today's lecture is Chanoyu, the traditional tea culture in Japan. Actually, the term tea ceremony is often used to translate the word Chanoyu. And the term the way of tea is sometimes used for the word sado. I'm not sure how long this tea ceremony has been used. Indeed, Chanoyu has ceremonial elements, but this does not fully capture in its nature. Therefore, for today's lecture, I will not use the term tea ceremony. I will just use the Japanese word Chanoyu. Cha means tea in Japanese, and yu means hot water or boiled water. So Chanoyu literally means hot water of tea. And matcha powder tea as a beverage was introduced to Japan from China in the 13th century. The act of drinking tea was eventually be sublimated into Chanoyu, a cultural tradition that represents Japan in the 15th century. So, how can I explain about Chanoyu? It is very difficult to explain it in a simple way, but the essence of Chanoyu lies in communicating with one another through the act of sharing a bowl of tea. For this act of drinking tea, spaces such as tea rooms and tea gardens, as well as various utensils and craftworks have been created and handed down. Furthermore, like other Japanese traditional performing arts, Chanoyu involves the embodiment of precise form through study and practice. There are manners and etiquette involved in all aspects of Chanoyu, including procedures for preparing and drinking tea and handling utensils. And these are learned through repeated practice. The tea gathering is a place for enacting the forms acquired through this practice. The host invites guests to a tea gathering and serves a bowl of tea. For this purpose, the host prepares tea and sweets, as well as utensils such as kettle, tea bowls, and tea containers for serving and drinking tea, and a hanging scroll or other items for display. The combination of these various items expresses the atmosphere of the tea gathering and conveys the host's thoughts to the guests. It is a lifestyle culture unique to Japan that aims to nurture a richer humanity through the intangible skills such as etiquette and manners, and through the expression of taste that is expressed through the combination of utensils. As mentioned earlier, Chanoyu was developed by Sen Rikyu at the end of the 16th century. This is a portrait of Sen Rikyu, painted by Hasegawa Tohaku, and it has been passed down in our family for generations. This hanging scroll is designated as an important cultural property in Japan. Here, I would like to introduce Chanoyu that Rikyu developed into a great masterpiece by using 3 words. The first word is wabi, a term that expresses the aesthetic sense of Chanoyu. This term is based on the idea that a state of imperfection or incompleteness is a good thing, or that we should openly accept such a state in things. It is said that the tea master Shuko, who was active a generation before Rikyu, was the first to introduce the wabi aesthetic to the world of tea in the mid-16th century. For example, In the words of Shuko, 月も雲間の泣きは嫌にて候 in Japanese. Even the moon is not pleasing when there are no clouds. In other words, it is more interesting to see the moon partly obscured behind the clouds than to see the full moon shining brightly. So, if you look up at the night sky sometimes and compare the feeling of seeing the full moon to seeing the moon peeking out from among the clouds, you may understand what the word wabi means. By the way, if you look up the word wabi-cha, wabi style of tea, in Japanese English dictionary, you will find it defined as tea of quiet taste. But I don't think this is enough to give you an idea of what it really means. I will discuss this in more detail later, but please keep in mind that this wabi aesthetic and wabi spirit are at the root of Chanoyu. The second word is chazen ichimi. Tea and zen are one, meaning that the underlying precepts behind zen and tea are fundamentally the same. Zen seeks to illuminate how one should be as a person through seated zazen meditation. In the same way, Chanoyu aims to nurture a richer sense of humanity through serving or drinking a bowl of tea with a variety of utensils, and facilitates the exchange of thoughts between host and the guests. The term sado, or the way of tea, which is also used to refer to this art form, is derived from this aspect of Chanoyu. And the third word is ichigo ichie, one lifetime, one encounter, which is said to have originated from Rikyu's teachings. It means that both the host and the guests should understand that each tea gathering is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. This phrase shows how Rikyu approached Chanoyu and put his heart into each and every tea gatherings. One well-known anecdote about Rikyu is the story of the morning glory. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the ruler of the time, had a rumor that morning glories were blooming beautifully in Rikyu's garden. So he went to Rikyu's tea house to see them. However, when he arrived, he found that all the morning glories in the garden had been picked, and there were none to be seen. Somewhat angry, Hideyoshi entered the tea room, where he found a single brilliantly colored morning glory in a flower container in the alcove. Hideyoshi was greatly impressed by this presentation. Instead of showing a large number of beautiful morning glories, Rikyu had selected only the very best example, and this is thought to have made the beauty of the single flower stand out even more. It could be said that Rikyu's aesthetic was not one of addition, but of subtraction. Rikyu's sense of beauty is clearly and visibly conveyed to us today in the utensils he used for his Chanoyu. One of the most representative and symbolic of these is a raku tea bowl. Before the time of Rikyu, ready-made bowls were adopted for use in the preparation of tea. However, Rikyu was not satisfied with this and met a craftsman named Chojiro, whom he commissioned to create a tea bowl that would suit his vision for Chanoyu. And this photo is a black tea ball made by Chojiro, which has been handed down in the Omotesenke family. It is said that Rikyu always kept it by his side, so it was given the name Kamuro, which means personal attendant. The tradition of black tea ball has been passed down to the present day by successive generations of Raku family. And there are various types of containers for arranging flowers in the alcove, including ceramics, baskets, and metal vases. But the practice of cutting bamboo to make flower containers was started by Rikyu. It is said that in 1590, when he accompanied Toyotomi Hideyoshi on a military campaign to Odawara, Toyotomi Hideyoshi on a military campaign to Odawara, he cut a stack of bamboo from a local bamboo thicket and used it as a flower container when he held tea gatherings there. Actually, this flower container is said to have been made at that time, and this container is currently owned by Tokyo National Museum. And Rikyu's creativity also extended to the design of the tea room itself. This tea room, named Taiyan, located in Kyoto, is the only existing tea room made by Rikyu. It is just 2 tatami mats in size. I have actually had the opportunity to enter this tea room several times. It is truly a small space, but when you sit down, there is plenty of height, and you do not feel suffocated. Rikyu must have been seeking the ultimate confined space where host and guest would face each other with the ideal degrees of tension, connecting them over a bowl of tea. Rikyu was particular about each individual utensils and even the tea room itself in order to achieve his ideals for Chanoyu. Rikyu was valued as an instructor of tea by the Japanese rulers of his time, such as Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi. And he became one of the most influential figures of his time. His presence grew under the Toyotomi regime, which used Chanoyu for political purpose. And Rikyu was instrumental in organizing a tea gathering at the Imperial Palace, as well as the Kitano Grand Tea Gathering, which was unprecedented in scale. In the end, however, Rikyu incurred Hideyoshi's disfavor and was ordered to commit suicide, ending his own life. The circumstances of his death are still one of the great mysteries of Japanese history. In any case, it can be said that there was an internal conflict between Rikyu, who held to his ideals for Chanoyu to the end, and Hideyoshi, who held the ultimate political power. After Rikyu's death, his successor, Shoan, was exiled from Kyoto and lived in seclusion in Aizu Wakamatsu, which is a long way from Kyoto, or more than 600 kilometers away in a straight line. A few years later, Shoan received a letter which contained a message from Toyotomi Hideyoshi, telling him that he had been forgiven and inviting him to return to Kyoto. On his return to Kyoto, Shoan re-established the Sen family at its current location. This was in the end of the 16th century. The letter that conveyed Hideyoshi's forgiveness is known as Showan Meshidashijo, or letter of summons to Showan, and it symbolizes the revival of the Sen family. It has become customary to hang this hanging scroll on New Year's morning each year to greet the new year with a fresh mind. Later, in the mid-17th century, the three sons of Rikyu's grandson, Genpak Sotan, established the three branches of the Sen family: Omotesenke, Urasenke, and Mushano-Koji Senke. Of these, Omotesenke, as the central lineage of Rikyu's family line, has passed down tradition of Rikyu's Chanoyu for about 450 years and continues to present day. So here, I'd like to introduce about Omotesenke. Successive generations of Iemoto, or the heads of the familial lineage, preserves the traditions of their family lines, while at the same time seeking ways of being appropriate to their own times. The Omotesenke style of tea is described as being simple and natural, as flowing water. This means that the procedures and movement of Chanoyu should be natural, like water flowing down a mountain stream, without interruption or stagnation. This phrase is not just about how one conducts oneself, but also refers to one's attitude towards Chanoyu. It further implies that the manners and etiquette of Chanoyu are an extension of everyday life. Now, let me introduce you to the tea rooms and tea gardens at the Omotesenke residence in Kyoto. This is the front gate of Omotesenke, which looks like the entrance to a samurai residence at first glance. In fact, this gate was a gift to the Sen family from the Kishu Tokugawa family in the early 19th century in recognition of Omotesenke Iemoto's service as the tea advisors to the Kishu Tokugawa family during the Edo period. The Kishu Tokugawa family was one of the three branches of the Tokugawa shogunal family. Successive generations of Omotesenke Iemoto managed their tea utensils and assisted at tea gatherings organized by the lords of the domain. Since then, for about 200 years, this front gate has been the face of Omotesenke and has welcomed many people, such as guests to tea gatherings, practitioners who come to study tea, and other special visitors to Omotesenke. And this tea room, named Fushin'an, is symbolic of Omotesenke tradition as a whole. Sen Rikyu was actually born in Osaka and came to Kyoto only in his later years. He named the tea room he built in his first residence in Kyoto, Fushin'an. The name was received from his Zen master, Kokei Sochin, and is said to have been taken from the Zen phrase, Fushin hanahiraku konnichi no haru. Translation is, how mysterious the blooming of flowers. Today it is spring. The current Fushin'an tea room still bears a plaque with the name Fushin'an that was inscribed by the monk Kokei Sochin in Rikyu's time. The tea room itself has a limited space of about 3.5 tatami mats. The location and layout of the tea room has changed since the time of Rikyu. But this does not change the fact that this tea room has continued to be the center of the Omotesenke residence, and that it symbolizes the Omotesenke lineage, and that it carries on the tradition of Rikyu's Chanoyu. I succeeded to the title of Iemoto 7 years ago, and I am currently still holding tea gatherings in Fushin'an to mark the occasion. Although various official events have been held to celebrate this transmission, the most important and formal of these is to invite people who are closely related to us to personally announce the succession of generations through sharing tea in Fushin'an Tea Room. And this tea room is called Zangetsu Day, or Arbor of the Lingering Moon. In 1587, Toyotomi Hideyoshi built a castle called Jurakudai in Kyoto and granted Rikyu a residence there, which Hideyoshi frequently visited. The current Zangetsu Day was modeled after a tea house in Rikyu's Jurakudai residence. The name Zangetsu Day comes from an anecdote about Hideyoshi, who is said to have visited Rikyu's residence and sat in the alcove of the tea room to admire the lingering moon. Unlike Fushin'an, this is a large 10 tatami mat room with a 2 tatami mat alcove, and it connects to the next room, so it can be made even larger by removing sliding doors. Annual New Year's tea gatherings are held in this Zangetsu Day room, with the sliding doors removed, opening it up to the next room. Many people attend, and I served koicha, thick tea, to them. So now let me explain about this hanging scroll. As you may have seen on the photo panel, or you can see in this photo, the hanging scroll used at the New Year's tea gathering at Omotesenke is calligraphy written by the third generation Iemoto, Genpaku Sotan. It is a Zen phrase, Haru senrin ni irite shosho uguisu. That means, in spring, the sound of the nightingale can be heard everywhere in the forest. The original phrase is not about nightingales, but flowers. But Sotan changed the flowers to nightingale for this hanging scroll. And I'd like to present a hanging scroll with the same words to the Library of Congress to commemorate this occasion. So, haru means spring, iru means enter, senrin means like large forest, and shosho means everywhere. And this uguisu means nightingale. So it means, as I said, in spring, the sounds of the nightingale can be heard everywhere in the forest. At first glance, it may seem different than to compare with Genpaku Sotan's version, but it's just my version of calligraphy. So now let's go back to the Omotesenke tea rooms. This is the Founders Hall. A wooden statue of Sen Rikyu is enshrined here. So when you enter the tea room, a statue of Sen Rikyu is enshrined behind a round window in front of you. Actually, various parts of our residence have been destroyed by fire on several occasions throughout its history. But this Founders Hall has escaped the various fires and is the oldest surviving buildings on the Omotesenke property. The tea garden is called the Roji. In formal tea gatherings, people walk through the Roji to reach the tea room. This Roji is sometimes described as being like a mountain dwelling in the middle of the city, suggesting that it creates a feeling of being deep in the mountains while still being in the city. The Omotesenke tea garden is actually densely filled with trees, and the ground is covered with moss, making it a fitting embodiment of the ideal of purity and tranquility. Midway along the path, there is a middle gate. Passing through this middle gate is like leaving the mundane world and going deep into the mountains. In this way, the stage for Chanoyu is not only the interior space of the tea room, the tea gardens are also an important part of the tea gatherings. Now, I'd like to talk about Omotesenke Domonkai, Eastern Region, USA here. The Eastern Region, USA was established in 2010, and since then, activities have been carried out mainly in 4 areas: Washington, D.C., New York, Florida, and Philadelphia. I attended the inauguration ceremony in 2010 and presented a tea offering at the Cathedral of St. John's Divine in New York. As mentioned earlier, there will be a commemorative event in New York next week, and tea offering ceremony will be held in the same location. This cathedral is said to be the largest Gothic-style building in the world, and both the interior and exterior creates a solemn and dignified atmosphere. In Japan, dedication tea offerings are usually held at shrine or temples, but the dedication ceremony at the cathedral gave me a different kind of tension. I remember the words of Dr. Ueno, Chief of Eastern Region, USA, at the opening ceremony. Let's do activities that will become a bridge between Japan and the United States. Actually, this is the first time to come to Washington, D.C. Since then, so I've been looking forward to my first visit in 15 years. Now, I'd like to talk about the spirit and essence of Chanoyu. At the beginning, I mentioned that the tea gathering is a place for implementing and sharing the forms that we learn in our regular practice. There are various types of tea gatherings. When you think of tea gatherings, many people may think of something like the one in the photo, with lots of people taking part. This type of tea gathering is called Oyose, Oyose tea gathering. in which a large number of guests are hosted at once. This Oyose tea gathering was conceived in the 20th century in response to the large increase in the number of people attending tea gatherings. Since many people are participating in this 15th anniversary event, the commemorative tea gatherings are being held in this style. And there is also tea gatherings held outdoors. This tea gathering is held at Nijo Castle in Kyoto during the cherry blossom season every year. It is very elegant to enjoy a bowl of tea under the cherry blossoms in full bloom. And the most formal type of tea gathering is called a chaji, or tea event, in which a small number of guests are invited and served a kaiseki meal, koicha, thick tea, and usucha, thin tea, in an intimate settings. The tea gathering held in Fushin'an to mark my succession I mentioned earlier is held in this style. Let me introduce another utensils owned by Sen Rikyu. This photo shows a flower container called a kouraizutsu, or koryo cylindrical vase, which has been used in the tea event to announce my succession of the Iemoto at Fushin'an. As the name koryo cylindrical vase suggests, it was thought that this flower container was made in Korea when Rikyu used it. But today's research suggests that it may have been made in southern China or in the southern barbarians. In his later years, Rikyu used this container very frequently, and there are actual records of it being used at tea gatherings. It is said that Rikyu once said that if he had these three things, Zen monk's calligraphy, a black tea ball, and this koryo cylindrical vase, kouraizutsu, he would not feel lonely even if he lived in the deep mountains. At the tea event, hanging scroll is first hung in the alcove, and then when serving thick tea, koicha, the arrangement is changed, and a flower container is hung in the alcove, and flowers are arranged in it. At the tea event, to announce my succession, I hung this flower container in the alcove of Fushin'an and arranged flowers. The photo shows how the flowers were arranged. The first one shows camellias and Japanese dogwood. The second photo shows mountain peonies. And the third photo shows saga chrysanthemums. While actually using it for a tea event, I was always thinking about which elements of the vase met Rikyu's sense of beauty. From a sculptural point of view, it feels like a simple cylinder with no particular design. But when flowers are arranged, the flowers seem to come to life and stand out. It seems to me that this vase tells us that the flowers themselves, not the vase itself, are the object that should be seen. The utensils are an important element of tea gathering, and appreciating and using them are also part of the enjoyment of Chanoyu. Each tea utensil has its own story: who owned it, and what kind of tea gathering was it used for. The same thing can be said even if the item is not something with a long history, such as korai-jutsu. It might be something you liked and bought on a trip, or it might have been given to you by your parents or teacher you studied under. And when was it used, at what tea gathering, and who was invited? The thoughts of the owner are contained in each and every utensil, and these thoughts of the owner are passed on to the next generations, and the utensils of Chanoyu exist beyond the ages. Actually, some of the utensils used in the Chanoyu are over 400 years, dating back to the time of Sen Rikyu, and even more. You may have the opportunity to see them in display case at art museums. However, the utensils of Chanoyu are not for viewing, but for actual use in tea gatherings. If it is a hanging scroll, it should be hung in the alcove. If it is a flower container, it can be used to arrange flowers. And if it is a tea bowl, you actually use it to make and drink tea. I believe that the utensils of Chanoyu comes alive when actually used and touched by hands at the tea gatherings. Now, let us return to about the tea gatherings. Whatever the types of tea gatherings, the host prepares every detail of the guest's pleasure, and it is hoped that the guests will recognize the host's thoughtfulness when they participate in a tea gathering. I mentioned the phrase "ichigo ichie," one lifetime, one encounter earlier. The host prepares the utensils, selects the tea and the sweets, cleans the tea room and tea garden in preparation for the guest's attendance at the tea gathering. The guests, on the other hand, are expected to attend the tea gathering in the same spirit of consideration as the host. In this way, the hearts of the host and guests connect through sharing tea, and a once-in-a-lifetime gathering is realized. Chanoyu is also known as the culture of hospitality. However, hospitality in Chanoyu is not a one-way act. It is something that can only be achieved when both host and guest respect and honor each other. Earlier, I mentioned that the host conveys the purpose and atmosphere of tea gathering through the selection of utensils. Among the assortment of utensils used in a tea gathering, the alcove utensils are the ones that most clearly express the purpose of tea gathering and thought of the host. In this regard, there is a tea gathering that holds a special place in my memory. After graduating from university in Japan, I went to England to study. Just before I left for England, a certain person held a farewell tea gathering for me. In the alcove, there was a painting of a large ship sailing through the waves with the inscription, 鉄船300丈、波頭の高きを恐れず、Iron ship, head high 300 lengths above the waves. So it signifies that if the ship is this magnificent, there is no need to be afraid of high waves. And in front of the hanging scroll was a boat-shaped flower vase named Junpu, favorable wind. From the setting of the alcove, I could understand what the host was trying to communicate at this tea gathering. He was wishing me a safe journey and conveying that there was nothing to fear, even if I encountered difficulties while abroad. Although he did not say these things specifically during the tea, I could clearly sense his intention from the arrangement of the utensils. On the other hand, due to my own lack of my explanation, I have also experienced what a tea gathering is like when form is ignored. One time, I was asked to provide a group of young researchers from a certain overseas institute an opportunity to experience Japanese tea culture. I wanted them to relax and enjoy a bowl of tea without any formalities. So I told them not to worry about etiquette and that they should just try a bowl of tea first. Of course, there were some people who had probably studied the etiquette beforehand and asked many questions. But there were also some who lifted the tea bowl with one hand as if they were drinking black tea out of teacup, or lifted utensils high in the air to look at them. Since I did not explain clearly, it was my own fault, so I had no intention of blaming them. However, I realized that I had my own assumptions that if the utensils was an important object presented by the host, regardless of whether it was expensive or not, it would be natural to handle it carefully with both hands, and the guest's consideration would be expressed naturally in their behavior. Through this type of experience, I have come to understand that the form of Chanoyu is an important rule and a common language for those who attend tea gatherings. The tea gathering is a place where people enact the form that they have learned through the regular practice. And even if they do not speak in words, the form serves as a tool for communication. This form is where the soul of Chanoyu resides. There is a phrase, ichiza konryu, sit together to build together, meaning that a true tea gathering is realized when both the host and the guest have mutual respect for each other and become as one in their hearts. Even though they are in the same genre of traditional Japanese culture, Chanoyu is not a work of art like ikebana, nor is it a stage performance like no or kabuki. The tea gathering itself is both the work of art and the stage for Chanoyu. And it is not the host alone who creates it. The guests also play an important role in the creation of tea gathering. Ultimately, a true tea gathering is a collaborative effort between host and guests, where all play their respective roles to construct a single unique moment. I said earlier that a form is the common language of the people assembled at tea gathering. So when you learn a language, the language itself should not be the objective. The purpose of learning a language is not to get a good score on a test. Rather, it is learning what to tell to whom, or how and with whom to communicate using that language. Language is only a means of communication. I think the same thing applies to the form of Chanoyu. I think the ultimate goal is not the form itself, but how to interact with others or to create something new at the tea gathering through mastery of the form as a means of communication. And Chanoyu represents a significant component of Japan's traditional cultural heritage, having remained largely unaltered in its form and essence for approximately 500 years since the time of Sen Rikyu. This enduring tradition, however, is not just that old things have been left behind. It is perpetually evolving to incorporate new methodologies in response to the demands of the changing world. Japanese culture is currently attracting a lot of attention around the world. The World Expo will be held in Osaka, Japan, from next month. Many people from various countries and regions will visit Japan, and I think they will also be interested in Japanese culture. But this is not the first time that Japanese culture has drawn attention internationally. In the 19th century, there was a trend called Japonism that was triggered by artifacts sent from Japan to various world expos. The most well-known of these is ukiyo-e. In the realm of Chanoyu, Tokuzen, the 14th generation of Eiraku family, who produced tea balls for the Chanoyu of Sen families, actively participated in the expositions held in Europe and the United States during this period, and received various awards. This tea ball with a peony design was one of his award-winning works. However, the Japanese boom at this time was all about objects, and people were primarily interested in Japanese-style beauty as represented by these objects. If we are to advocate for a kind of Japanism in the present age, rather than focusing on an object-centered perspective, I would argue that what is important is the emotional connection between host and guest that is meditated by these objects. I believe that it is necessary to promote Chanoyu rather as a space where the spirit of mutual respect among the participants can be exchanged. After the time of COVID disaster, when it was difficult for people to be in direct contact with each other, people may have come to realize even more deeply how important and precious it is to have heart-to-heart relationships fostered by sharing the same time and the same place with others. As the phrase Ichigo Ichie suggests, Chanoyu places importance on each encounter, and the essence of Chanoyu lies in the fact that the host and the guests share the same time and the same place in the tea room. And through a single bowl of tea, communicate with each other through their hearts. This form of direct personal connection that cannot be achieved or resolved through virtual or online interactions is what our predecessors valued and what we should value in the future. And I believe that this is the reason why Chanoyu has been passed on from generation to generation. These days, we hear a lot about division and conflict in various places. I think that the spirit of Chanoyu, which involves consideration for others and treating each other with respect, is needed more than ever in times like these. As the things change, I think that the significance of Chanoyu being passed down in the present day lies its ability to convey important things that will never change. Now, it's nearly time to finish, so I should be finished my lecture. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, thank you very much for your listening to the plenary lectures. Now we are going to the Q&A session, and today Professor Morse from Amherst will translate what our Iemoto will answer to you with a little bit of addition based on his knowledge. Okay? Okay, is there any questions? Question or? Okay, yeah, please.
Hi, 伝統はいろいろ姿を形を変えるとおっしゃっていると思われますが、これから茶の湯はどのように変わっていくと思われますか?
So the question is that the Iemoto said that with each generation, Chanoyu changes while preserving its essence. And the question is, how does the Iemoto believe that Chanoyu is going to change in the future?
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you for the question.
この話の中でも話した通り、茶の湯っていうのは、守るべき大切なものを守りながら、時にはその時代の要請に応える形で、その時代の新たな息吹を吹き込むような形で伝統が守られてきました。
So as I said in my talk, the importance of Chanoyu is it preserves tradition, while in each generation there are certain elements that change.
例えば日本の明治になって、西洋からのライフスタイルがこう入ってくる中で、椅子に座ってのお手前、立礼っていうのがこう、取り入れられたり。
So one change that comes to mind is that in the Meiji era, when people came to Japan from the West, Chanoyu came to be practiced while using chairs.
そうやって時代ごとのこう要請を取り入れる中で、茶の湯っていうのは受け継がれてきたわけですけれどもじゃあ今の時代の、そういう時代の要請っていうのが何なのかっていうことを考えたときに、普遍であるっていうことも、一つの時代の要請だと思うんですね、私は。
So when I think about what may change in the present generation, I think in particular about the possibility of the universality of Chanoyu.
今日の話の中で話したように、亭主と客とが一服のお茶を通じて心を通わせる、そういう大事そういうこの相手を敬い合うミューチュアルリスペクトっていうのは、今のこういう時代だからこそ、より必要なものだと思います。
So as I mentioned in my talk, the importance of the host and the guest being able to share something with one another in each tea event, and I consider that to be of particular importance in a moment like the one we are living in now.
なので実際日本でも畳の部屋が少なくなったりだとか、正座をするのが苦手だっていう人が実際に増えてきたりとか、そういう事情もあり、やっぱ流礼っていうものが、流礼っていう形のお茶席が増えてきたのは事実ですけれども。
So in Japan, there are fewer and fewer tatami spaces, and there are more and more people who do not like sitting in the formal way of seiza. So I think
本当に大切な根本的な形っていうものは変えることなく、伝えていくことができればなと思っています。
So I would like to continue, in spite of new kinds of popularities, to continue to communicate the fundamental parts of Chanoyu.
ありがとうございます。そしたら次にもういくつか質問を受けたいと思いますが、どなたかおられませんか？はい、どうぞ。
Yeah, so thank you so much for the talk. Oh, stand up. Sorry, 失礼します。英語で話します。質問します。So I'm just curious, how with Japan's becoming extremely popular, matcha is, becoming limited. Like it's really hard to find matcha. I've seen in the news. How does Omotesenke and tea ceremony and Chanoyu fit into kind of this exchange between the U.S. and Japan? Like how can we kind of continue to spread the word of Omotesenke here as popularity of Japan rises?
およそ実際その抹茶っていうのが世界中で、健康にいいということでいろいろ取り入れられているのかもしれませんけれども、日本でもなかなか抹茶を手に入れるのが難しくなって、なんかデパートとか行っても一人一缶しか買えませんっていう、そういう制限があったりするんですね。
So it certainly is true that matcha has become popular around the world, in particular because people know that it is good for one's health. And there are limits put on the purchase of matcha at Japanese department stores where customers, in fact, can only buy one can of matcha at a time.
それで抹茶とか日本の文化がどんどん広がっていく、世界に広がっていく中で、ただその抹茶がブームになっているっていうのは、抹茶っていうのはあくまでもその茶の湯の中の一つの要素にしか過ぎないと思うんですね。抹茶を立てて実際その一服のお茶で亭主と客とが混じり合う、そういう大事な部分っていうのがその抹茶のさらにその先にあると思うんです。
So indeed, matcha is part of Chanoyu, but it really is only one part. The physical tea itself is only one part of Chanoyu, and what I think is most important is that host and guest be able to share one bowl of matcha together.
なので、そういう、日本にしても海外でするにしても、そういう大事な部分というのは変えることなく、伝えていくことができればなと思いますし、ただやっぱりそうやって日本の文化っていうものが世界で受け入れられている、注目を集められているっていう状況はやはり日本人の一人として嬉しく思います。
So I do think it is important, whether it is in Japan or outside of Japan, that host and guest be able to share a bowl of tea, and that being central to Chanoyu. And I also think it is important for Japanese people to continue educating others, people outside of Japan, that it really is in the sharing of a bowl of tea in which the essence of Chanoyu lies.
で抹茶が好きっていうところから入っていって、より深いところに足を踏み込むような人たちが増えていけばいいなと思いますし、例えば去年西海岸に行った時に感じたんですけど、向こうで漫画とかアニメとかそういうのがすごく人気で、そういうところから日本語を学びたいっていう高校生たちもなんかネイティブの人で多くいるっていうことを聞きました。
So one can hope that by liking matcha, one will learn more about Chanoyu. It would be an entry point into Chanoyu. And similarly, when I was on the West Coast last year, I heard that lots of young people who become interested in manga and anime want to learn Japanese language. So it's possible that these two phenomena can parallel one another.
なんでそういうところから入った人たちがより深いところの、その日本人の精神性とかおもてなしの心とか、そういうところにも興味を持っていってくれたらなと願っています。
So I hope through encounters like that, these young people will learn more about the Japanese spirit. They'll learn more about the importance of omotenashi, of treating each other with deep respect between host and guest. And that, I think, can be a part of the future.
Thank you so much. Now we'll finish the Q&A session and move to the ceremony to transfer the gift to the Library of Congress. And Kumakura Sensei, can you fold the hanging scroll back in the box? So this is also the very important procedures. I'd like to invite Ms. Robin Dale, Deputy Librarian for Library Collections and Services at the Library of Congress. Welcome.
So I'd like to give you 3 items. First one is hanging scroll. As I said in the lecture, Haru senrin ni irite shosho uguis. In spring, the sound of the nightingale can be heard everywhere in the forest. And second one is 15 photographs you may have seen in the photo sessions. And the third one, the book titled Research on Chanoyu in Modern Times, Centering on Omotesenke. It is written by me, and other 33 books.